Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining this session of our Virtual Career Week hosted by nCino. It's leveraging LinkedIn. This morning we have Savannah and Janet who are going to be leading this presentation. We will be opening it up to questions at the end, but feel free for you students that are attending to ask any questions in the chat during the presentation as well. So I'm going to hand it off to Savannah. We'll let you ladies get started.
Thank you, Casey. So as Casey mentioned, we are recruiters at nCino, and we're going to talk to you about how you can leverage LinkedIn to build your personal brand. Many of you are probably in the midst of either graduating or just building your experience and your qualifications. And so LinkedIn is a great tool to be visible and to get out there and seek opportunities. And so we're going to talk to you about our perspective as recruiters, what it looks like when we're searching for candidates, and how you can make yourself more visible and more marketable. First, we'll introduce ourselves individually. I'm Savannah Stott. I'm an associate recruiter at nCino. I've been with the organization for about a year now. Recently became the team's university program specialist. So the areas that I focus on within nCino, hiring, marketing, is the department that I mainly support. So positions, categories that we see the most growth are technical writing, product marketing, and the creative marketing team. So different roles sort of fall under those categories, but that's where we see most of our hiring needs. There's also general and administrative that I support, which is sort of a lump sum of a lot of different professional type of roles. So the non-technical roles that are more corporate, so like legal positions, finance, human resources, and operations. In addition to supporting the hiring needs, I also help with the university events. So I coordinate the events, but I also get to maintain the strategic university partnerships, sort of like the one we have with UNCW, which helps us to be able to be a part of awesome opportunities such as this one.
And I am Janet Mordeci, and I am one of the senior global recruiters at nCino. I've been there for about 2.5 years now. I come from a financial advising background and then moved into recruiting. So I was a financial advisor for about 5 years, graduating from UNCW with a finance major, and then moved into recruiting because it was just something that really made me passionate about connecting with people, and I wanted to help people with different opportunities and help them find their dream job. The roles that I cover at nCino are part of our professional services department. And what that means is they're customer-facing roles. So they go to the financial institutions that we sell our software to and say, hey, cool, you bought our software, but what do you want this to look like for your particular financial institution? They're more tech-heavy and functional roles in the sense of doing configurations and maybe some coding and development. Those positions will include implementation consultants, project managers, and solution architects. They're both for enterprise banks, which are your larger institutions, meaning your SunTrusts, your Banks of America, your Wells Fargos, and then also the smaller banks that you may see around town, what we call CNR, or commercial and retail banks. So I provide that team with all of those roles. And then I also cover a lot of our different regions. So I am on calls late at night sometimes with Australia, cover the London office, Canada, US, the Wilmington office, and our Salt Lake City office. So those are some of the regions that I cover with the Department of Professional Services. To tell you all a little bit more about nCino, I'm not sure if all of you have heard who we are, but we are a cloud banking software. We originated in 2012 out of a small bank, or was a small bank at the time, Live Oak Bank. There were a couple of bankers there that wanted a software to better streamline their business, and they couldn't find a solution to help them do that. So they decided to actually build a solution for themselves. From 2012 on, they realized how incredible this software was and branched off from Live Oak Bank. So a fun little fact about nCino, that's where we get our name from. We have a little marketing spin, but nCino translates to Live Oak if you're using Spanish, not spelled 100% correctly, but again, a marketing spin, but that is where we get our name from Live Oak Bank. And ever since then, we've just continued to grow. So we've been in the market for 8 years. We are expanding again across the world. We now have 7 different offices, and 5 of those offices are in different countries, which is pretty amazing to see. We started off with 5 employees, and now we have over 900 employees, and that's globally. So pretty exciting, and all our clients are financial institutions. So we want to talk today about some of your LinkedIn needs and your personal branding on LinkedIn. So a lot of people ask, do you need a personal brand? We like to use Oprah as an example. You guys all see that big O, and everyone can pretty much identify what it stands for. So when we look at yourselves, whether it's on your resume or LinkedIn, you want to make sure you do have a personal brand. And ways to do that is you share your mission and your values. So you can state that LinkedIn profile, what some of your missions are, what you're trying to achieve. If you have a certain major that you're coming out of college with and you want to make sure you have your career path in that, you can then go ahead and have your missions and your values stated on that page so that you can identify with some of that industries. You want to stand out from the crowd as best you can. Savannah get a lot of different resumes, and we look at a lot of different profiles for positions across our company. You want to stand so that you're different from the next person that's applying. If you have your standard bullet points and just stating things in general, it's not going to make you stand out and make us want to say, hey, maybe we should give this person a call because they have a little bit different personality on their resume or LinkedIn. It helps us find new opportunities for you as well as you finding opportunities for yourself. And Savannah will go into that a little bit later in the presentation of how that's connected. And we like to see on your personal page some of your professional goals. We want to hear from you. We want to see, what are you achieving? What are you trying to go towards? What are some of your passions? We want to see that on your resumes and get to know you a little bit better as much as possible, and even on your LinkedIn profile. So what can you do to become a LinkedIn superstar? We want all of you to walk away today with some tidbits and tips to be able to be a superstar on LinkedIn. Some ways to be able to do that is you want to look at your background starting off. So if we take your basic profile, you want to have your background be professional. If you attended a school that you want as your background, feel free to put that, or just have a casual background or a nice scenic background. Don't do anything crazy with pictures of a group of friends or anything like that. This is a professional site and social media, so you want to keep it professional. Along with the background being professional, you want to make sure that your profile picture is as well. Also, make sure that your profile picture is just of you. You want to make sure that we can click on your link and see your face and identify with you, versus having a picture of 2 people or 3 people on your profile picture. Then we're not going to know who's who within the picture. So we want to make sure that that's professional. We also want to make sure that
Janet, I don't want to interrupt you, but just to keep in mind for our students, we do offer at our career fairs, both in the fall and the spring, we have a professional headshot booth there, and it's free to the students. So any of you that don't have that, once we're back on campus and those events start happening again, we do offer that twice a year. And then I know there's other organizations that sometimes have that as well. So
that's awesome, because I remember when I graduated, I had to go out and buy it, and coming out of college, it was not cheap, but it was worth it. And sadly enough, that's still my first picture from when I was like 22 years old. So I probably need to update it. So if you have that ability to go utilize the school and take a professional picture, I highly recommend it. It just stands out above other people when you are polished, and we can see that across your profile picture. Then you also want to make sure your name is correct. We don't want you having a nickname. Some of my friends call me Jay, but I'm not going to have that on my profile because my name is Janet. That's my professional name. All my colleagues know me by Janet. And then you want to make sure your title is correct too. So coming out of school, this is where you can put either what your major was, maybe a position that you're looking for. You can kind of tailor it a little bit, but don't go too crazy and try and stay within the guidelines of making sure, again, it's professional. And then a key thing too is having your location. That is huge. If you're wanting to stay here in Wilmington, put Wilmington. But if you want to move to California, put the area in California that you want to move to. That's going to be important when recruiters are looking for you because they're going to start searching within that city if it's a local job or a local candidate that they're looking for. So if you are looking to get out of Wilmington, put the city you're looking to go in and you will come up on more searches. And then the last thing about your profile we want to touch upon is just your about page. We like people who are creative, still professional, but creative, and being able to add a little bit more of who you are within that about. We see a lot of people that just take their business company mission and say, this is what nCino does, or this is what our university is about, which is great, but it doesn't tell us what you're doing or what your mission is or what your values are. So it goes back to that personal branding and being able to stand out from the crowd. Some ways to do this or avoid doing is being a robot. You don't want to be a robot. And what I just stated previously about just taking a statement and saying, this is what we do as a company, doesn't really show us what you're doing in that role or where you want to go with your career. Again, I studied finance, so I may want to put something in there that's related to what I've achieved in school. This is what I've learned. These are some of the clubs, and just give a little bit more detail versus somebody who is able to advise people in finance. Like, it's just very robotic, and you want to add a little bit more personality to your profile. Some of the ways that you can do this is just be yourself. Here's a great example of an about page where somebody was able to just spice up almost what they're doing, and you can see their personality through it. So they are leading the team that makes the culture magic happen, recruiting globally for our HQ office in Wilmington. So it just gives that really huge sense of who they are. They're very excited about what they do. Versus this other example, it's just very clean cut, but it's passion for customer communications, project management, and product strategy. All right, further expand my skill set. So they're just very general in that sense. So it always helps to be yourself, be authentic, add some tidbits. In the example above, you see a little quote that that person liked. It just shows your personality across your profile as well. Here are some additional tips for a great LinkedIn profile. I think the main thing to consider is make sure you're talking in first person. We see some profiles sometimes that say, Janet did this, and Janet was able to achieve a certain thing. It looks like somebody else did your work for you. You should be proud of the accomplishments that you've done and what you've achieved. So make sure you're saying, I am looking for, or I achieved this certification. That's something that is really important to have on your LinkedIn profile. And then describe your professional passions. If you're going towards something, let's say even in the medical field, you want to make sure that you're expressing why that's passionate to you. Like, I want to help save lives. This is something that's extremely important to me. Express that in your profile and use your own words when doing that. It's okay to take the mission of the company that you're looking towards, or even the mission of the school that you went to, and kind of have some cross values within that mission, but try and make them your own words at the end of the day. And then share those career highlights. We love to see things that you've achieved in your school years and what you've achieved throughout college, whether it's, getting certain awards, getting certain certifications, being part of different groups. Like, we love to see all that. All of that information gives us a little bit more detail about who you are. And we love to see people's personalities and authentic selves just come through their profiles as best they can. Another great tip for your LinkedIn profile is if you are looking at a particular company, it's always great to look at that specific company's mission, and you can try and tie your mission into what they're looking for. So for example, with nCino, we're banking software. So you might have some interest in engineering, or you might have some interest in banking. Somehow tie your profile to say, I've always had a passion for banking, or I enjoy communicating with different people within the industry and having that face-to-face contact. Just tie it with the mission of the company if you can. And then again, just be human and try not to be a robot. Add that authentic self.
Janet, and real quick, I wanted to ask another question.
Yeah.
So when you talked about sharing your career highlights, and this may be
Mhm.
something that you guys are going to dig into a little bit more, but I feel like we get a lot of students that they're worried because they don't feel like the experience that they have is relevant. But I'm always more under the, like, giving them the advice of, if you've done it and you've done it for a while, like, it shows work ethic, it shows commitment. If you started waiting tables or nannying or lifeguarding when you were 15 or 16, like, that should still be on there. And because it's something that shows who you are, that you've been working, what you've been doing. And while it may not be relevant to necessarily the career you want, it is relevant to the fact that you've been working since a young age and, like, had that level of loyalty, commitment, and work ethic.
Yes, absolutely. And that's a great point. So when you're coming out of school, you have a lot of maybe even side jobs. I mean, no, I was a babysitter, and you think, oh, I'm just watching kids. That's not a relevant job experience. But no, I learned how to structure days. I was almost managing people, if you think about it, making sure that everybody was happy and not fighting. Like, there's definitely transferable skills that you can take from experience like waiting tables or babysitting or anything really that can be transferable to your profile. Just think about it as communication skills and being able to effectively handwritten skills, whatever it may be. There's hard skills and there's soft skills that we all look for. And a lot of the times your skill set that you're coming out of college may be more soft skills where you're communicating with people, but it's just as important. So great point, Casey. And then these are just some helpful prompts for you. These are examples. They're more geared towards nCino, but it just is giving you a little bit more example of how you can go ahead and phrase some things on your profile. So for example, you can say, I connect financial institutions with the technology that helps them provide and personalize experience customers and employees demand. That's a little bit better than I work with banks. So it just adds a little bit more flair to your profile to give us a little bit more of, you're personalizing their experience, you're working with customers and employees. So you're customer facing, you know how to communicate. There's a lot of times recruiters are reading into what the words are actually saying. So it's a lot more powerful than you think when you have a structured sentence like this. But these are just some helpful prompts. Again, they're geared a little bit more towards our company since that's where Savannah and I have the most knowledge of. And then Savannah is going to be able to jump into the LinkedIn profile and give you a little bit more tips and tricks specifically to doing things on your profile.
Yeah, so not all LinkedIn users are actively job searching. Some are salespeople using it for business development purposes. Maybe they're a realtor trying to gain more clients, whatever it may be. But however, most of you are probably job searching or going to be job searching in the near future. So you can tailor and adjust your settings based on your job search preferences. So for example, and keep in mind, this is the view that we recruiters see. The general public and other users cannot see this, I guess, version of your profile. But John Smith is currently a technical writer at Amazon. As a recruiter, I can see that he's actually open to new opportunities based on his settings. But instead of looking for a role or another role in technical writing, he's actually looking for a software engineering opportunity or a web software developer opportunity. I see that he's open to remote, full-time, part-time, contract, and he's actually looking to get, he may not be looking to get out of Wilmington, but Tempe, Arizona is another area that he might be interested in relocating. And of course, you do not have to be this specific. If you're open to any job opportunity in any region, you can just say open to new opportunities. But this helps John to be able to sort of filter against those messages from recruiters based on his preferences, but it also helps recruiters know and helps us to get the best candidates in our search based on what we're looking for. Another way to make yourself visible is by adding skills to your profile. You can easily do this. A lot of technical qualifications, even soft skills are great. A combination of all of those is amazing, especially in the technical space. We are doing Boolean searches as recruiters. So this is basically us combining a bunch of keywords together in our search on LinkedIn to find the candidates that are, their backgrounds are well aligned to what the hiring managers are looking for, what the job entails, and the job description. So if you add the skills that you've done, the technical or the non-technical, you will probably come more near coming up in our search based on what we're looking for. And of course, continue to add to your skills. Make sure that they are they're factual, that these are not skills that you've just made up to make yourself more marketable. If it's something you're trying to obtain, go get that certification and add it to your LinkedIn. Don't be afraid to put the social in social media, especially on LinkedIn. It is obviously more professional, more formal than Instagram or Facebook, but don't be afraid to use it as a social media platform. You can do this by connecting with people that you want to build in addition to your network. Converse with folks that you've added on LinkedIn. They'll accept your request. Don't be afraid to converse with them. Maybe they've got a skill that you're looking to obtain. Feel free to reach out to them, ask them how they obtained it, tips, that sort of thing. And then of course, congratulate people when you're seeing them achieve their goals.
Savannah, right here, I think this is another good point. I know that we've chatted about this before, and for students to realize and know, as a recruiter, when you're working with so many candidates, there can be some times where you connect with people and maybe you haven't talked to them in a while or they fall by the wayside. But when people are active on LinkedIn and maybe sharing articles or liking things or congratulating and posting, it actually can allow them to show up in your feed, and sometimes it'll click like, oh, I need to reach out to that person, or, oh, I haven't connected them with a while. So the more active you can be on there, the more that you're going to be showing up and maybe be at the forefront of a recruiter's mind.
Yeah, and I'm sure Janet and I could come up with plenty of examples of where we aren't actively in a search, but we see John Smith comes up and he's congratulated somebody. It shows up in our feed. It has that small world feel, and we would not have run into John Smith or have been able to reach out to him if he hadn't have congratulated somebody and he didn't show up in our feed in that way.
Yeah, and I'll add to that, especially for me, this is important because I have a very small niche with the people we're looking for. They have to have a very specific technical background for us to want to find them. And I have found some great candidates that just commented on somebody posting a certification they got saying, this is great. And I'll click on that profile. And then guess what? It shows up. It shows up. These are similar profiles. And there's, the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon type of concept, but it's true. It really is important to make sure that you are using this as a social platform, keeping it professional, of course, but there's all of that network and that web that takes place within LinkedIn. And I have found some really amazing candidates that I don't know if I'd find any other way unless they would have clicked on somebody's comment and then they were friends of that friend. We dig deep when we're able to go on LinkedIn. We are definitely trying to find the right candidate. So if that takes us clicking on a few other people to get there, we're going to do it.
Well, it's another reason why when you talked about those skills and endorsements, that they're so important for students to use those keywords, because as recruiters, there's the LinkedIn recruiter side where it's almost like search engine optimization. The more times you can use those skill words or those keywords, the more likely you're going to come to the top of a search when a recruiter is looking for someone like that.
Exactly.
So another piece of your brand is your resume. And so you can strengthen your brand. Really, the resume and the LinkedIn profile go hand in hand. They're not, they don't replace each other, but they complement each other. The LinkedIn profile can be more personal. As Janet mentioned, you can elaborate a bit more in your bio and your about me, whereas your resume is going to be a bit more concise. But as a supplement to your resume, you can always add your LinkedIn URL at the top of your resume so that we can easily access that link. There are a lot of generic names out there. There are a lot of people with similar names. And so this helps us to easily access your profile. And when you apply for a job, we can easily dig a bit deeper and find out a bit more about you and your qualifications by being able to easily access your LinkedIn profile. But of course, your LinkedIn profile should be in sync with your resume, especially pertaining to job history, dates, education. Make sure all this information aligns, because there's nothing more confusing or raises red flags when we get a candidate application and their experience does not align with what's on their resume or vice versa. It's sort of a trust factor. We don't really know what's factual, and it's just not a good look to not have these things be consistent. So in closing, we're just going to go over a few of the points that we covered today on how you can strengthen your brand, and then of course become more visible to recruiters as you're on the hunt for your next job. Be authentic. As Janet mentioned, you can add flair and personality. Use our ideas in this presentation to come up with the best way to represent yourself on LinkedIn. Of course, make sure everything is factual. And if there's something you're trying to achieve, go do it. Get that qualification and add it to your LinkedIn, but just make sure that it's authentic. Be visible. Add those qualifications so that you do come to the top of our search when we're doing Boolean searches and looking for the right candidate for our role. Focus on the present by making sure that everything's up to date. Have a current photo. If you've got a photo from 10 years ago, I wouldn't say that that necessarily represents who you are now. It may, and that's great, but make sure that your experience is up to date so that you can market yourself in the best way, because recruiters are using LinkedIn, we're on LinkedIn, and this is how you're going to find your next opportunity. And then of course, make connections. It's definitely a small world platform. Like I mentioned, Janet mentioned she's got specific qualifications that she's looking for. And so you've got a group of people who are all intertwined in some way. And so make connections with the jobs that you're trying to get or who you're trying to aspire to be. Ask advice, congratulate, and just ultimately make yourself more visible and make your brand stronger in that way.
Awesome. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
If you're interested in nCino, feel free to follow us on LinkedIn. You can get connected with other people, see what types of job titles and roles that we have, job openings, and then of course, you can keep up to date on industry news and updates as well.
Yeah, and nCino is definitely one of our great employer partners in the UNC Wilmington Career Center. They do a lot of recruiting on campus. So hopefully if we can get back to those events this fall, you'll be seeing a lot of them at the career fairs and some of the things that they're involved in. But want to open up now a time for you all to be able to ask Savannah and Janet any questions. So you can either put them in the chat. We'd love to open it up verbally if any of you all want to unmute yourselves and ask questions.
And while we're waiting for any to come in, I do have a point that I just think is really important with LinkedIn, which maybe you guys can comment on. So as recruiters, I'm sure you guys are in LinkedIn, every day, having it open, doing searches. What do you think is the importance of somebody who may not be in it every day, getting into the habit of going in and really interacting with your profile? Because I think there is a danger of kind of setting up your profile and then never logging in again. So you're kind of missing out on posting or even liking other people's posts and interacting, and that is a way to make LinkedIn work for you. So what do you recommend for people to kind of trying to get into that habit?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I would say to start off, make sure you have your notifications turned on. So although you may not be on LinkedIn every day, I am almost positive everyone checks their email every day. So make sure you have notifications turned on. So if there is a search that comes up, it can be automated. You can set your settings to pop up and say, hey, if this job opportunity comes up with these specifics, shoot me an email and it will let you know. I think that's the start, is to just make sure you're getting those notifications. And then if you're not in it every day and check it, which not everybody is, not every profession requires LinkedIn, et cetera. Just try and be a little bit more consistent, maybe go on once a month or whatever it may be. I mean, at the end of the day, it is a social media platform, and I know we have nothing better to do anyway right now. So you might as well hop on and kind of edit that profile. But I would say, yeah, notifications is key on that. This way you're getting everything you need at least sent to your email and notified what's going on.
And I will say, just as a follow up to that, if any of you feel like you want to, spruce up that LinkedIn profile or need some help with that, the Career Center is offering drop-in hours every day in the afternoons from 2 to 4 virtually, that you can speak to a career counselor and they can help you with not only resumes, but that as well. Or you can set up an appointment virtually with your career counselor through Handshake, and LinkedIn. Going over LinkedIn and helping you with that is definitely a topic that they can also touch on and help you kind of figure out the best way, if you don't have one, to start it, or if you do have one, to make it better. But we have a question in the chat from Janice. If you just graduated and you're unsure about what specific job you would like, so maybe you have your major, but you're not really sure what you want to do, what is the best way that you would think as a recruiter for them to brand themselves on LinkedIn if they're not quite sure what they want to do? They don't have a specific objective.
Yeah, I would recommend, of course, adding all the qualifications and skills that you do have, what you've learned in your coursework at UNCW. If you're currently in an internship, make that specific. But of course, make it generic in the sense of don't be too specific on your open to new opportunities. And maybe even add something in your headline that you're eager to learn and grow. But you don't really have a specific area that you're looking to focus in. Of course, we like for people to at least have an idea. We don't love when somebody says, I'm a marketing major looking for a marketing internship. That's great that you're open-minded, but it helps us as recruiters to know a bit better about which direction within the business that we can help point you if there are job openings based on your interests. So I think just doing research too, on what really piques your interest, and maybe adding that to your profile just to be as specific as you possibly can.
And I'll add to that a little bit, is sometimes you just have to ask yourself those hard questions. Do you want to be more technical? Do you want to be more functional? Do you see yourself in a more corporate environment? Do you see yourself in a private company? It is tough. I mean, we're all still trying to figure out what sometimes our next move is going to be. Nobody has the exact answer. And to Savannah's point, we do talk to candidates sometimes and they're like, I'm open to anything. I'll be a receptionist. I'll be a CEO. I'll be whatever. And it's very difficult for us to hone in on what that person may be successful at, because one of the things we do as recruiters is we want you to be successful. We want you to come into a role, be passionate about it, and not just be in a role. We want you to be able to grow with the company as we grow. And doing that is sometimes asking yourself those hard questions, like, do I like more technical? Do I want to be more administrative? Do I want to do this? And try and focus in on those questions too.
I think too, that's where some of the resources from the Career Center could come into play. I know, Janice, you're the one that asked that question. Things like that Pathway U assessment that we have on our homepage, where you can kind of measure your beliefs and values and interests and how those might line up with career goals or the type of work environment that you want to be in. What can I do with a major in, or wicked whammy? Looking at all the different job titles of roles that maybe you have interest in, or things that you could do with the major that you have that aren't necessarily, you know, you're an accounting major doesn't necessarily mean you have to be an accountant, but all the other types of roles that exist. So I think just getting a better understanding of like who you are and what's important to you can also help you to align a little bit better with that ultimate goal or those types of career opportunities. Alex asked, what is the best way to advertise via LinkedIn that you're actively looking for internships?
Yeah, I would, and Janet, you can weigh in here too, but I would recommend making yourself open to new opportunities and then maybe being specific, just like John Smith was on his profile, about what types of internships you're looking for. And then of course, if you are looking for a specific type of internship that requires specific skills, add those to your list of skills. So if we're sourcing an intern, you will come up at the top of our search, but you can also add that to your headline too. I don't think there's anything wrong with adding, I am Alex and I'm looking for this type of internship in this industry.
We would 100% agree with that. You know, even targeting it to saying like May 2021 grad looking for internships in Raleigh this summer, or like financial internships, like tailoring that headline to exactly where you want to be and what that internship you're looking for. That's 100% what we would suggest in the Career Center as well. Let's see. George asked, we've got some good questions coming in. Is it appropriate to reach out to HR departments on LinkedIn? For example, I'm transitioning out of the military and researching various industries.
Yeah, so I think it's great to connect with people and, you know, introduce yourself via LinkedIn. We do get a lot of that as recruiters. I think it's also, though, important to be more specific. Like, I applied for a job or I'm looking for something, like almost connect with a purpose, I would say. Don't just connect to connect with that purpose of, this is what I'm interested in, this is why, these are my skill sets. So yes, it is appropriate. I mean, we all want to connect with everybody anyway. You never know where that connection can lead. So I think it is great to connect with those recruiters, but stay, hey, I'm interested in this position, I've gone and applied for it, just wanted to let you know, is great, versus sometimes we do get messages, unfortunately, not from students, but more or less people who are in the industry, and they'll message us every day. And it just gets to be a bit much when we're not just handling one position. So connect with a purpose would be my message behind that.
I would also suggest there, looking, if there's specific companies or industries that you're looking at, see if there's alumni from your school that work at those places and using those as connections as well, because I think that is always a way to open up the conversation and learn more about a company. If you have that in common with someone that they went to school with you. I know Savannah went to UNC Wilmington, and so I'm sure if there's people from UNC Wilmington that reach out to her just in asking questions about nCino too, she's probably more likely to chat with a fellow Seahawk than she would just be maybe a complete stranger. I know I am.
Yeah.
Let's see. We have another question. And I think this person came in late, but wanted to know how much detail about our experiences should be shared on LinkedIn. Should it be more concise like our resume, or more of a story? Is it okay to have more on your LinkedIn than your resume?
Yeah, I would recommend definitely make your resume more concise than your LinkedIn. As I mentioned before, they should complement each other, not replace each other. So feel free to even add more personality. You can reference the examples that we provided earlier in the presentation, but how you can kind of switch it up, make sure it's not too cliche, really personal to you, but also, you know, sharing a story like you mentioned, that's totally okay. It's a place for you to, of course, be professional, not as informal as your other social media accounts, but it is a place where you can make it as personalized as you want.
I think, Ashley, do you have your hand raised there?
Yeah, hey, I'm Ashley Navarro, work in the Career Center at UNCW, and we use a lot of assessments like the StrengthsFinder tool, or StrengthsFinder, Gallup StrengthsFinder, and assessments like the Myers-Briggs. And I have that information in my About section, and I wondered if y'all thought that is a good idea, a bad idea, if there's a better place to put it, or if that's something that I should just take off completely. Because I know that a lot of our students, some of them have done strengths finders as well.
Yeah, I think it's fine to have in there. Again, the more detail we can learn about you and what you've done is always going to help us when we're looking at a big pool of candidates. It's having that personal brand and adding that little extra touch to what you've achieved and what you're doing. So I think it's perfectly fine to have it in your about, or even duplicate it, have it in your about, and then also have it in your skill sets. Like, that's fine as well.
Nice. And I just wanted to make a point, and I can stop if we get another question coming in, but the importance of definitely utilizing LinkedIn when you're newly graduating, but then also using it in a way that when you're years into your career, you can also look at it as a way of staying in touch with other companies, other industries. I myself have worked at a couple different companies now. And I love going through LinkedIn and seeing what other people have been up to, where people are working now. I kind of still know what other industries are doing. So it's a great way to kind of have a little snapshot of that. So definitely using it to promote yourself when you're looking for opportunities, but also using it as a way to kind of stay in the know is another way to look at LinkedIn.
That's a great point. And I always say to some candidates when we reach out, sometimes the best opportunities come about when you're not looking for one. And staying connected on LinkedIn is a way to do that. Just, checking it every once in a while, or again, having those notifications set up. So if a recruiter does send you a message, you can maybe learn about this great new startup company you never even knew existed. So that's a great point as well.
Well, I think for recruiters, because, that being my background, there weren't always students that maybe you met them at a career fair and they weren't ready, or they thought they wanted to move somewhere else, or it wasn't really the right time, or maybe they even took a new opportunity but they still connected with you. You had that connection, and a year later, maybe things aren't working out and they still found their way back to you, said, hey, I don't know if you remember me, we met at this career fair. So I always tell students when they're attending those events, like, if there's a company that you're interested in, don't be afraid to take those business cards, to make those connections, because you never know when it might come full circle, or maybe it's not the right opportunity for you now, but 2 or 3 years from now, it might be. And if you're still connected with Savannah and you can make that personal connection, or you can reach out to Janet, it makes a world of difference.
It really does. We have some great stories. I know Savannah can too, but we've had candidates that we touch base with, wasn't the right timing. 6 months later, wasn't the right timing. And then a year and a half later, now they're at nCino and killing it. So we are so glad that they're here, but they stayed in touch with us. We stayed in touch with them. So it's that connection that makes a difference.
Awesome. Do we have any last minute questions before we wrap up? Okay, I think we have another one coming in from George. And George, if it's easier for you to unmute and ask instead of type, you're more than welcome to do that.
Sorry.
That's okay. It might be easier than typing it out.
Yeah, at UNCW, I'm finishing up my first year, and I'm one of the executive distance learning students. So I haven't gotten much with the 2 residencies about the Career Center. Is it possible to schedule a call and just kind of understand how to use those assets when you're not close to the campus? And who would I reach out to?
100%. I may let one of our career counselors. What did you say? Do you know what your major is yet?
So I'm working on my second master's in just executive MBA with the international focus. 20 years in the service right now.
Okay.
So what I'm really looking to do now is in the next year, in 2021, I'll have an opportunity to do like a 3 to 6 month internship. I'm just trying to before I retire. So I'm trying to dev out what that's going to look like. I got my brother crashing with me with coronavirus, and he's an Ohio State MBA student, and he's been kind of showing me their career center and distance learning. It's very similar to what UNCW has, as I've been exploring it on my own. I just think it'd be easier if I could just talk to someone that works there to better understand how to use that. I'm sure I'm not the only distance student.
Absolutely not. And we definitely, we not only support our current undergrads and graduate students, we support all of our distance learners and all of our alumni to like the dawn of time. So we, definitely have those connections. I believe that, and Jackie and Leslie, you can nod yes or no if I'm wrong, Nadira Pippin, who is on this call as well, would be the person for you to connect with.
Yes, I'm here. If you wanted me to take over, Casey, I didn't want to just interrupt your talking. That's all I was like, wait for a break. So yes, hello, and thank you for asking about that. Definitely we have opportunities to connect, and I'm grateful for one thing about this situation that we're going through. I think that the use of our virtual resources has become so much more heightened that it's easier for someone to see that when we say we're available virtually, this is exactly what we mean. We've been available in this way for a very long time. So as a distance ed student, you can schedule an appointment to meet with me virtually. It's typically a Zoom meeting just like this. We can share documents and review documents. We can just have conversations. I'll share my screen and walk through our resources with you if that's the one thing that you want up front. So that's the best thing that we could do to schedule an appointment. Have you logged into your Handshake account yet?
Yes, I logged in. I just created it this week. I literally just created
Perfect.
LinkedIn in the last couple weeks too, so I have some homework to do after
Well,
this.
perfect. This is the perfect time to get into all of that. If you click on the appointments tab in Handshake and then click on Cameron School of Business, you'll see me as an option in all of my appointment availability. So you can just use that to schedule a meeting with me in the next couple of weeks at your earliest convenience.
Thank you so much, and I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. I look forward to talking to you.
And this is a good segue for all the students attending this session that we are, like I mentioned earlier, still doing 100% virtual support. So same Career Center hours, you can schedule appointments through Handshake. We have those drop-in hours. We're trying to do more of these workshops. So definitely don't feel like we're not here for you. Our career counselors are doing probably maybe more work virtually than they, sometimes have done, because we are on 24, well, not 24 hours a day, but we're still, logging those 40 hours a week, just via the computer. So definitely don't hesitate to use our resources. Savannah and Janet, thank you so much. This has been a great session. I'm really glad that we've had such strong student turnout and really good questions. But do you have any last minute tips or advice for us before we wrap up?
No, I just want to say, if you guys have any additional questions, feel free to reach out. We're happy to answer those for you. But thank you so much for having us. This is always fun for Savannah and I to come on and just share our experience as recruiters.
Awesome. And for those of you attending this session, I'm sure Savannah and Janet would love to see LinkedIn invites from you afterwards, as well as those of us in the Career Center. We never, I really don't ever decline most people. So it's always nice to put that face with the name after you've kind of had one of these sessions. Awesome. Well, I'm going to stop recording. And again, Savannah, Janet, thank you so much. And I'll chat with you ladies soon. And everyone have a wonderful morning.
All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good one.